with Microsoft Word documents, we used to have to attach them and then send them by email, and then you send them back, and then like the document would go back and forth a number of times, and eventually you'd have like you'd change the name to be like underbar final, and then you'd have one more change. So it would be like final, and then it would be like this one is really the final one, and then we all realize, hey, there's a better way. And for those of you who use a real collaboration service like Google Docs, one of the tremendous features in that is that we can collaborate inside the document, right? So now if I have something I want to change, I just select the text and I can type. I can talk about it. I can ask a question.
I was going to say, it's kind of like how before with Adobe files, you would always be sending Adobe final, image final. And now with things like Figma, the real-time collaboration, editing, and ability to work together is just absolutely game changer.
So it's a whole nother world. And I hope most of the viewers, listeners agree that like we don't want to go back to that way of doing things, right? Once you have that real-time collaboration within the document itself, it's like this is the way to do it. It's so much better. So why do we go through this whole thing with Microsoft Word is that if you really think about it, that's kind of what people are still doing today with GitHub, right? You make a set of changes. In this case, you're editing code on your computer. And then when you're ready for somebody to look at it, you create a pull request. But that requires you to switch from your editor over to a website, create a pull request. You have to push your code. And then that'll send an email to somebody who's going to receive that email and then go back to github.com, and then they'll type all their changes, and those comments that they type end up triggering another email to you. So we're not talking about the code in the code anymore. We're talking about the code through email and a website. So it's just a really inefficient way to just quickly collaborate around software. And so
okay, let's see if I'm back. Let's see if I'm a real girl now.
It's basically real-time collaboration in software, while GitHub, it provides asynchronous.
Yeah. And by the way, it seems like people can now hear me on the YouTube chat, I believe. Nice. So
we can hear you all along, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I don't know why nobody else.
No, this is this thing because I'm set up as like the producer of the show. So there is this mode where it's like you can hear me, but the audience can't hear me, right?
But now we fixed it.
Yeah, I think we might be good now. We'll see. But yeah, no. So this was my reference to saying we very often end up in that email being like, "Here's what I changed," right? Like, obviously, like GitHub contains what you changed, right? It has line by line what you changed, but you still very often write a commit message, sometimes quite extensively, to be like, "What was the purpose of this change?" You know, hey, I noticed a problem here, and here's why I'm changing that. And so the sort of live collaboration thing, and I noticed this a lot because I actually was living right in this world for a while when we would use like a headless CMS system, and I promise this gets somewhere. We were working with these like markdown files that were going to go into the CMS. And so I would want to collaborate on those markdown files, but that just was not that easy to do in, Subversion or GitHub or whatever else, right? It really just had to be like, well, okay, here's my new version, and not like, hey, I don't know who this person is. Can you find the link, right? That just was very hard to include. And you still see this. You see from headless CMSs, you see stuff distributed all the time that has like in all caps, like, please revise this section, editor. Like, please do not publish until this part is replaced. But yeah, so we're trying to improve upon that a little bit.
The other big use case that is not well served with GitHub today is, so GitHub is pull requests work, albeit a little bit inefficiently, but they're centered around changes, right? A pull request, that's what it is. It's going from one code base to a different code base. It's a delta. It's a change that you can discuss. But what if you've got a pretty big code base? So let's say you've got 10 million lines of code in your code base, or 1 million lines, whatever it is. How much is really changing at any given time? And what if you want to talk about the code that's not changing? Like, what if you're a new developer on the team? What if you have questions about how the code base works? GitHub doesn't really do that. They don't make it easy to talk about code that isn't changing. And that's really the biggest use case. The reason that we built Codestream is to make it easy for developers to ask questions of their peers. Say, select some code and say, how does this work? And right now, there's no real good way to do that. So when we talk to development teams, the most common way they say is, well, I tap somebody on the shoulder. Well, now with COVID, you can't do that. And so they literally just copy and paste into Slack. And that's like totally inefficient. So there's a better way.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good insight, Peter, which is like a lot of the tooling exists around either production of artifacts, i.e. like a commit or a ticket creation, or it completely takes you out of the context of what you're doing. So, if you're in your IDE, now you're starting a Slack conversation, and that's not necessarily tied to the detail with any level of permanence. You just end up completely out of context. You're having a one-off conversation with one of your coworkers, and then like that conversation ends. Eventually, like the conversation drops off your timeline because you haven't talked to them in a while, and then you're like trying to remember what it is you said about that particular thing that was happening. It escapes you. I think we saw like the exact same type of thing when we were building Errors Inbox. Admittedly, like we did we were very much in our infancy of building collaboration features, which was you had this kind of like living, breathing thing, which was the fingerprint of an issue that your system had that could recur, or maybe had like a long-lived cycle where numerous changes were required. But the artifacts that customers were using to manage those were like Jira tickets, where they would just copy and paste details to a third-party system, or they would move it to Slack. And so we kind of started down this exact same road before, we made the acquisition. So it was really like an aptly timed partnership to bring the two tools together. I think it's pretty cool.
So I think, I would like to see the baby. So if you want to shuffle around your windows and get ready, and we'll do some screen share.
All right, I'm shuffling. Hold on, give me a second.
You have 5. No worries.
5 seconds. All right, I'm shuffling.
If this is a baby, is this the graduation or the start of pre-K?
This is the very start. The baby is just shapes and colors at this point.
Oh my God! Okay,
they're watching those sensory videos.
It's a bit more than that.
There's lemons rolling across the screen. Actually, Codestream's pretty full featured. Actually, like Codestream's kind of ready to go, which is pretty neat. So screen share should be up and visible now.
Okay. So you guys are able to see it? And should I jump in and start showing you the different sides of the baby?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So
because I think imagining what it means to actually collaborate on a piece of code is a little tough. So let's take a look. And folks, we know the text is a little small. This is really about. I promise we won't test you on whether or not this for loop is Turing complete. You will just we're just sort of getting a sense for the flow through this IDE.
And one thing I did want to clarify on the type of collaboration that Codestream offers. So we're all familiar with how Zoom works, right? And Zoom is that when a teammate and I, or multiple teammates, we're all available at the same time. And we all have our full attention. It's synchronous communication. And there's a lot of value in that. I mean, I use Zoom every day. I'm sure a lot of the viewers also do that. But then there's also a different type of collaboration that we use services like Slack for, where it's mostly text-based. And it can be synchronous because real-time chat, but it's also async, right? And we use both Zoom and Slack together, and they complement each other. So what Codestream provides is, for developers, we provide the Slack-like experience where it's mostly text-based and it can be async or sync. But it's not like live screen share where we're both editing the same document at the same time. And that there are services for that, like Live Share is one by Microsoft that works really, really great, but they're very complementary to Codestream. And they work great together.
Yeah, I think that time spacing is very real, because I think my second software team, pairing was like always the solution.
Yep.
And that was tough. I was remote at the time. It was like the only way to get help was to know that I was taking up an hour of someone's time.
That's right.
To look at something, and it had to happen on their schedule. And it's great to have that in the quiver, but it just it's really nice to have some kind of async tool as well.
Right. Yeah, it shouldn't be understated too, like how beneficial it is to make the conversation about subjects like that more casual, where it's less like you're grabbing time on somebody's calendar and burdening them, especially for engineers trying to get their feet on a particular area or ask questions about what something does, or make assertions about how code could be refactored to do something more efficiently. Because like if you make it more casual, it just has less weight, right? It can be a kind of, the conversation happens as it does. There's less, personalities. There's less ego involved. It's really just about the work product and about getting everybody up to speed and delivering value.
It's a good point. So let's pretend I'm one of those developers that I'm trying to get my feet on a project, and there's this chunk of code that I don't quite grok. Like there's something about it, it's not working for me, or maybe I have an idea of how to do it better. So Codestream makes this super easy. I just click the light bulb, click add comment, and up pops the comment box. So this should be a really familiar experience for anybody who's used collaboration services like Google Docs. You just select the thing, and now you can talk about it. But this one's built specifically for engineers, because what we did behind the scenes is a git blame to find out who wrote that code. And you can see here, Brian has been tagged. So that's a suggestion, because Brian's probably the best person to be able to answer my question. But it's just a suggestion. So if Brian's out sick today, I can mention Dave or nobody and say something like, how does this work? So this is...
Okay.
That makes sense, right? Simple, right?
Yeah. And this also opens the space for like, I think one of the things that and by the way, I like everyone here loves Git, and it's not saying like that's insufficient or just not right. But one of the things that I have certainly experienced on teams, a lot of this is about team practice, is like the only way to respond is like, no, we're not changing the code the way you wanted to. Like this is blocked because I'm going to complain about this. When there would be these states where it's like, hey, by the way, don't use a ternary operator like this. It's just not the style that we use in the shop. Okay, so, but, like this feature was requested, it's supposed to go out today. Like, so the ability to just say, hey, here's kind of a middle range sort of, hey, here's just a question about this, or feedback, or like, is this really doing this? Like a question that I always have, frankly, when we're going to large code base is, I'm looking at something, it's 30, 40, 50 lines of code. And I'm like, why isn't this just one line of code? Clearly I must be missing something. I'm not someone who writes like crazy complex stuff. I'm just like, why don't we just check this other value for true or false? Like, please tell me why, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the great benefits of this style of collaboration is that you can think of it as being able to do a code review on your entire code base at any time. So not just the PR that you received where you get one set of changes and you can comment on those changes. Well, now I can comment on the whole code base. And so, yeah, if I see the misuse of a ternary operator, or I see some low performing code or some technical debt, makes it really easy for me to flag that and then automatically kind of assign the right developer, because we're doing the git blame for you. So that person gets notified that, hey, there's a thing here.
Yeah, I really like this. I know, Ali, you and I have talked a few times about like the ability to have these kind of middle road conversations about like, what does this mean? Why is this working the way it is?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So we also recognize that, cool. So far, hopefully everybody agrees it's an easy way to get started with asking a question, but we also recognize that there are existing communication channels that your team is already using. So rather than copying and pasting this code block into something like Slack, where you'd be kind of lost because nobody knows where that code block comes from. So you'd have to manually say, in this repository, in this file, I'm on this branch, I'm on this commit, and this is what I'm looking at. And then you paste the code. And then only after doing all that manually, then you can ask your question. With Codestream, it's super easy because we integrate with Slack. So you can just pick what channel you like to have your code discussion. And this is sort of like a set it and forget it type setting. And now when I ask this question, it's going to post that to Slack, and Dave will have all the context of what I was talking about. So if we look at over at Slack, oops, wrong channel. So here we go. We can see my question to Dave, hey, how does this work? And Codestream has captured all that context for me. So now Dave will know what I'm talking about.
Now, I love this. I also love Peter's bravery for ever opening Slack when the
Yeah,
screen,
who knows what would have been there.
I'm gonna change channels. I'm gonna wipe that away until Slack is gone. I trust you, Peter. I'm sure you know what you're doing, but just I never post anything upsetting to Slack, but I'm still just too terrified.
I mean, looking at his Slack, I got stressed. Honestly,
I mean,
so many notifications. I'm stressed.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh! You have no idea. Just wait till you come down here.
Oh,
and
no!
So much red.
Killing us.
It's launch day today, so I'm getting pinged by all sides.
Hopefully, that's a lot of reactions of people with high five reactions and other good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so now I've posted from my IDE. Dave can reply from Slack, and that reply comes back here. So I'm simulating this, but Dave can reply directly from Slack, and I'll see his reply in my IDE. So now we can have a back and forth conversation about this code. And for anybody who's got an eagle eye, you might notice this little tiny green chat bubble there. Well, Codestream added that as an annotation to my code base because that's where the conversation is taking place, right? So now once we close this box and let's say I'm doing something else like a search, well, anybody on my team who opens up this repo is going to see this chat bubble and can jump into the convo. So they can see what was taking place here. And the cool thing is that that's going to be possible not only as we're having this discussion, but even over time. So this association will survive merges. So what's cool about that is that if we keep talking, eventually I'm going to resolve this discussion and Dave's going to answer my question. And now that's a really key piece of information because I've asked, how does this code work? And Dave's explained how this code works. So wouldn't that be great if we could save it with the code base for anybody to refer to at any time?
So this does this survive through like squashes and stuff too? This survives through like whatever other like history changing.
It does. And so that's what we set out to build is a communication tool that's built for developers. So it's Git aware. So let me show you a super simple example of that. So I'm adding some new code within that range that we had selected. So now Codestream is going to be aware of that. So when I bring back this conversation thread, you'll see this was the original code that was commented on. This is what it looks like now. And this is the diff. So now as your code base evolves and you have all those annotations that are explaining how things work, if the code changes too much, well, maybe that conversation isn't relevant anymore. Or maybe you need to add to it and explain more. If I could type right. But if it's really not relevant, you can go ahead and just archive that, and then that annotation disappears. So our philosophy here is we want to make it super easy to talk about code, and then we want to give you the tools to turn that discussion into a form of documentation.
Wow, I love this.
Cool.
Yeah. This kind of consistency through changes and being able to see something quite a bit deeper than a Git blame, like that feels really powerful.
Right. It's really the collaborative, the back and forth that you can ask a question, get an answer, talk about it. How should we approach this? It's those types of conversations that are best captured in a tool like Codestream, because I don't know how many times I've had those types of conversations over Slack, and then you forget because that's going to quickly scroll off the screen and you'll never remember how you arrived at that decision. But now you can have those conversations in your code base and keep that information with the code.
I love it. Yeah. Now all of this is totally unrelated to New Relic. It makes no sense that that New Relic owns this. I'm just contrarian today. I don't know. I got tattooed yesterday. And
let me connect the dots. Let me connect the dots.
All right. So maybe my negativity will be assuaged, Peter. Let's see.
Yeah. So the next few use cases I'm going to have to blow through really quickly because we got to get to the good stuff. But I want to show that Codestream is more than just code conversations.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to push this over to the New Relic side. Yeah, let's keep.
Yeah, no, but I also I'm like we don't want to be here for the next 4 hours, so I'll get.
We don't want to be here for the next 4 hours.
You can always talk its praise forever.
Yeah, that's right. I seriously could. So this is where we started with Codestream, is to build code discussion, and that was our first set of features were centered around these use cases. But what we heard from customers is like, this is great, but I do a lot of pull requests, a lot of the discussion in pull requests. So we said, you know what? Let's build pull request integration into this user experience. So now once you integrate with your code host provider, you just have a quick OAuth process. Then you can set up your PR queries. You can see these are the ones waiting on my review. Thankfully, none right now and none assigned to me. Here are my last 3 created by me and some recent ones that I've visited. So the key here is that you can set up whatever custom queries you want. And once you open up a pull request, you have a very familiar interface. So if you give it a little bit more space, it'll look even more familiar. This is practically pixel perfect from github.com. And what's important is that you can do anything here that you can do on github.com, but you can do a few things here that you can't do on github.com. So for example, you can check out to the branch and run a build. You can debug the code locally. And we're all familiar with this view, this what we call the diff hunks view, where you see the changes sort of stacked on top of each other, and you can add your comments in here. And I just exceeded my API rate limit because I've been doing so many demos today.
That's real.
But the other thing that you can do, which you can't do on github.com, is leverage your editor's diff tool. So I can, when I'm in this mode, I can see all the changes and the full context. So not just the diff, but the whole files. And I can do things like jump to definition, leverage code intelligence, and all the key bindings that I love for my IDE. So I can do my code review right from within my editor, which is a lot more powerful and also a lot easier. So that was our pull request integration. And we didn't stop there. We built something that we call feedback request, which is a way to get feedback on changes before you commit and push. So one of the great things about pull requests is that it's a great way to manage change. But what's not good about pull requests is that there's a lot of friction in the system. So we built feedback requests to address that, where you can ask for feedback on any set of changes. It does not require a branch, it does not require a commit, and it does not require you to push. So you can literally stub out some new code. This is a stub. And then as soon as you save it, and you can change a bunch of different files. So you're starting on a project and you want to get early feedback. Say, you know what, guys, I want my team to give me some feedback on how this looks so far. So you can see here that in my saved changes in my working tree, I've changed 2 files. And that's the file I was just in. So they're all just kind of tiny changes. And I can say, how does this look? Automatically tags the people whose code I impacted or who have changed the files that I'm changing. So we have this algorithm to suggest reviewers to you, but you can change that if you want. And I can also include the latest commits on my branch if I want, and those will be added to the diff set here. And then it's super easy to just post that, and Codestream takes care of the rest. So my teammates can click into a PR-like experience, but just to review the diffs and give me feedback on it. So it's super lightweight, it's easy to use, and a lot of development teams use that as sort of a pre-PR process to just enhance the amount of collaboration that happens as you're writing code.
I really like this. Now, I'm curious, Peter, are you going to be demoing this at Data Nerd Days coming up next month?
I am. I don't know how in depth we're going to go into this stuff because we're going to save the meat of it for the new stuff, but we definitely will go through a lot of these use cases as well.
I love it. This is my shameless plug for Data Nerd Days because we always want people to come out and kind of level up their New Relic skills. I just got to see the badges that you'll get if you complete more than one of the sessions. So
you get badges.
That was kind of neat. Yeah, no, I was like, we need badges. Come on, everyone lives to be certified. Everyone lives to sew that one embroidered circle onto your little sash. So yeah, we got that done.
Cool.
Well, that was such a dirt road, but I just wanted to talk about it, and I'm going to drop the link to Data Nerd Days in the chat here, and you'll see it down in the show notes if you're watching this recorded.
I already got it.
Hey, Allie, pipped at the post.
As soon as they started talking about it, I was looking for the link.
Allie Diamond is ready ready. It's because I was in Discuss. I was over in Explorers Hub, and I was like, oh yeah, look, there's Rin's post about Data Nerd Days.
Very cool. So the last thing I'll show before we get to the new stuff is our issues integration. So I think I've hopefully painted a picture here. Codestream's all about collaboration, where you're doing that in the code base through pull requests, through feedback requests, and then finally through issues. So if you use a service like Jira, we integrate with 14 different issue trackers, and you can set up a custom query using JQL just to see, or the basic one we set up for you is just issues assigned to you. And that allows you to sort of visualize the tasks or the tickets that you've got to work on for this sprint, or you can set it up however you want. And then you can burn down this list as you go through your workflow, and Codestream can help you along the way, because you'll be able to visualize the number of tickets you have in the tool where you're addressing those tickets. And we can automate the update of all the systems that you need to every time you grab a ticket. So you move the ticket to the next stage in the workflow. We'll set up a branch for you based on a configurable template. The branch name will be consistent across the whole team. And then you can even update your status on Slack if you want to let your teammates know that you've grabbed that ticket and that's what you're working on. So that's another sort of collaborative feature that we offer right within the Codestream interface. So all of this is what we had pre-acquisition. So maybe this is starting to paint a picture of like, these Codestream guys have brought a lot of functionality from a lot of different integrations into one pane of glass. Boy, wouldn't it be cool if we could also add production telemetry to that experience? Because Codestream's all about collaboration and giving developers the power to visualize their workflow on top of their code base and within that in IDE experience. So what we've done now with New Relic is to connect your IDE to NR1. So let me get started by opening up the integration. And all you have to do here is paste in your API key. Now, customers don't see this. This is sort of a back-end way for us to connect to our staging environment. But once I connect, then we'll walk through this super simple experience. Now, this Codestream has detected that I haven't yet instrumented my app. And of course, that's essential for application developers to add the instrumentation so they can start feeding NR1 with data from your application. And now we've detected that I'm building a Node app, which is true. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And then there's this 6-step wizard that will just help me get started. So I just pick a name for it, paste my license key. And then this is the next step is to do an npm install of the New Relic package. And this, because it's a Node app, we use npm to install New Relic. So this just take a few seconds for the npm command to run. And then once that's done, Codestream will prompt me to create a custom configuration file, which it has created for me with my key and all the relevant info. So I go ahead and create that. And then I need to add one line of code to the main file in my repo. So I can go ahead and do that. And then that's it. I'm done. All that's taken care of for me. And now once I restart my application, it's going to start sending info to New Relic 1. So that's super easy, right?
Yeah, pretty neat stuff.
All of this automation is just like so crazy how optimized you clearly really listened to your user base as building this. And now with New Relic, it's like so much has been automated. You don't even have to leave to get started with New Relic now. You just, it's all there. It's all so built cool. Right
in. Yeah. Cool. And so now we're sending data to New Relic. Let's take a look at what we can do with it. You know, as Andrew was mentioning, like errors inbox is one of our most popular features, growing really fast within our customer base. Customers love it. And one of the reasons customers love it is it helps you reduce the time it takes to resolve errors by providing this curated experience that combines all the stack traces and related error groups and allows you to see where problems exist. So in this particular case, I'm looking at this stack trace, but prior to the Codestream integration, I'd have to kind of manually take this data and the stack trace. We did provide this copy to clipboard link, which was really handy. But all that did was copy the whole stack trace. And then I kind of have to, where do I paste that now that I've copied it? Do I send it to a teammate in Slack because I don't even know who to send it to because I don't know whose code this is. Or maybe I'm kind of familiar with the code, but then I have to like manually open those files and remember what those line numbers are, or maybe open up 2 windows where, in any case, it's not super easy to do. And so we've added this. This is the new Open in IDE button, which is it's gonna seem like it's magic. Watch this. I'm just gonna click this button and boom, we're in my editor, and it's loaded up that exact stack trace. So not only can we open up your favorite editor, will allow you now to navigate through the stack trace and see all the different frames and jump you to the points in the code base where the problem happened. Ooh. And what's extra cool about this is that even if you're like, let's say you're not a developer on the team that built that service, well, Codestream will walk you through the process. We know where the code was built from. So each service now is associated with a Git repo. So if I didn't have that repo open in my editor, it'll prompt me to install it. And also it matters like what version of the source code that you use to build that production artifact, the service itself, right? And Codestream will automatically check you out to the version of that was used to build the artifact. So now the stack trace corresponds exactly to the line numbers and the versions of the file that were used to build that production service. So that's really cool. It cuts out a whole bunch of friction. But then when it gets really awesome is that now, as I'm looking through this, I'm not super familiar with this code, right? So what do? Well, I think this might be the problem, but I'm not positive. So I can just collaborate. So here I select the code and I think this might be it. I'm helpfully directed to Brian because Brian wrote that code. And I say, digging into this problem, and you help. And this will add a comment to the error group. And now the team will be able to see it. Brian gets notified that I want some help, and he can jump right into his IDE and collaborate with me on this error group. And that conversation is also now going to be mirrored on this new discussions tab within NR1. So now production and non-production engineers can come together and collaborate on errors in a way that's like vastly more efficient than anything that existed before it. So that's what we're really excited about, is the up-leveling of Errors Inbox to connect it all the way through to your code base and the IDE.
Yeah, I'll point out too, one of the really cool things here, and one of the things our customers really like about Errors Inbox is it provides that kind of level of permanence around the fingerprint of the issue. So like, Peter just went through, he's working this issue, collaborating with his other engineers to resolve the issue. And let's say you push a change and the issue goes away, but at some point it recurs. Classically, right, where that gets decoupled from the telemetry and embedded in 15 different Jira tickets or different commits, you don't have no idea what happened in the past. But here you would actually, because that issue arises and we keep that discussion linked to that error group persistently, as well as the metrics of actually seeing what the occurrences look like. If it happens a month later, you literally go back in here, you see that here's the discussion happened and the change that happened. You'll see it linked to the Git, the actual commits and changes that happened downstream that caused the regression. You can rapidly fix it without kind of digging.
This is awesome. There's clearly this was meant to be.
Right.
Y'all were meant to be here, clearly. And we've got such cool things happening.
Yeah, I remember pretty clearly in my early days doing SRE work right after I was doing tech support for New Relic, I would be grabbing chunks of stack traces and being like, hey, this is going to point to what the problem is, y'all. And I would very often get back responses from the people who worked on that service who was like, yeah, that's just the function that accepts literally all requests on this application. And so that part of the stack trace means nothing. Thank you so much. Right.
Right.
Because it just was not connected through to what the code base was.
Yeah. Right. And now, hopefully we can solve some of those problems and make it easier.
Yeah.
So there's one last experience and hopefully people agree that what we showed was kind of cool. It saves time, gets the right people involved. It hopefully gets the error resolved more quickly. But this next one is going to seriously feel kind of like magic. And I apologize, it's going to be an even smaller font, but we need to fit a lot on the screen at one time for people to be able to see it. So here, something that, and this is sort of the last thing we want to demo. It's called dynamic logging, and it works with Pixie. So for anybody who's using a Kubernetes cluster, and if you've got Pixie installed, it's the easiest way to instrument your application in production. And in this case, I've got JetBrains as my editor on the left. And you guys can see that, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. And on the right, I've got a web app. It's an e-commerce app where we're selling socks. And in this scenario, I've got this function called list, which is the function that lists out the products that match the current display. And I'm trying to debug a problem with it. So classically, what I might do is I might add some debug statements here and then save the file, commit the file, merge it in, push it up, try to get somebody to deploy it. And, sometime next week, I might have some additional information on this. But with dynamic logging, what I can do is just select this function and go to dynamic logging using Pixie. And this will associate this repo with the right account, the right cluster, the right namespace, and even what pod this service is running in. And then I can say, you know what, I want to capture every call to this function for the next 2 minutes. And so what this will do without having to deploy anything, this is literally all I have to do is click that one button. And now it's going to install a probe in production. It's going to set up the schema, and now it's starting to capture every call to list. So now as I use the application in production, as I click on that 6, you'll see here that page size is 6. Now I'll click on 9. Hopefully everybody can see this at least a little bit. Now page size is 9. So as I click around, and every time this list function is called, we're capturing the function arguments, and we're now displaying it to me that can help me debug that problem in production. So this is really cool because I don't have to change any code. I don't have to deploy anything to production. And yet I can see how individual functions are being called in a production environment and just add dynamic logging to anyone I want at any time for a brief period of time to capture every call to that function and see what the arguments are. Kind of cool, right?
Yeah, this part is really, really neat that we can get that kind of dynamic logging with the actual parameters. That is very cool.
Yeah, it's like debugging in production, like without, from your IDE on your laptop. It's kind of insane.
How to live on the edge without actually living on the edge.
Right.
Test in prod.
Well, hopefully fix in prod, right?
Somewhere Charity Majors is smiling down on all of this.
I know.
We will test in prod and we will deploy on a Friday and we'll like it.
Right. We've all been there. So anyway, that's the baby. I think we saw the top, the bottom, the left, the right, every side of the baby.
I love it. So how can folks try this out today, immediately, before 1 p.m. Pacific time?
Well, the easiest way is to go.
All I want is the easy way. I'll switch just
the easiest way. There are ways you can learn more. So if you go to newrelic.com, our new homepage features Codestream, so you can find out a lot more information there. But the quickest, easiest way to get started is fire up your favorite IDE. And of course, every IDE does this a little bit differently. But wherever you go to install plugins, you can just search for Codestream as a plugin for your IDE. And that's the easiest way to get started.
Yeah.
You can also, I think, the New Relic IO marketplace, if you're already logged into New Relic, also has this available. You can also see some details even if you're not logged in. And if you are a New Relic user and you get this going with setup and you just click that open an IDE button, we'll even drive you through the process of getting everything installed and going, whether you have it or not. So it's all the paths have a way.
No matter what you do, all roads lead to Codestream.
It
is a bit of a, there's a maze involved, but they all lead to the same thing. So
if you're using whatever IDE, which is of course always Visual Studio Code now, it turns out.
I think we, like, Peter, what is it? You support like 13 of them? So, yeah.
We support 13 editors, but VS Code is dominating the world. It's basically, the world is bifurcating between VS Code and JetBrains. Those are basically what's in popular use. And, being a plugin developer, we've talked to a lot of engineering teams about what editors they use over the last few years. And it's really astonishing how quickly VS Code has risen to prominence, because like 4 years ago, nobody was using VS Code, and now everybody's using it. So the landscape changes.
I think the short version of the reason is that there are at least 2 color schemes you can download that are inspired by Beyonce. And most IDs have at most one. I use Beyonce myself. Bayhive is the other one. It's also good. It's also a strong color scheme. But folks, now we gotta do our plugs. We gotta plug stuff. Now, I encourage anybody who wants to sort of experience this, who is not a New Relic user currently, head on over to trynewrelic.com to get set up and started. But Peter, what else do you have? Do you have a YouTube channel where you, in a very soft voice, describe what's inside of each Easter egg that you're cracking open? Is that something that you're making available?
That was oddly specific. But we do have. So we had a YouTube series that we were running for a little while. So in the Codestream is the name of the YouTube channel. And pre-acquisition, we used to do something on every Friday where we would do Codestream on tap. And a few of us would be together like this in a live stream and try different types of beer. And so it was a short-lived program. We're looking to revive it. We've been kind of busy with the acquisition and the integration. But starting very soon, we're going to revive that and come see us on Codestream on tap if you like craft beer.
Okay, I do see the value of that. That actually is pretty cool viral content. I'm not going to do a second one. I'm not going to do a second made-up viral content thing. But Andrew, where do you want people to follow you? What was the version I heard of this on the podcast today? Andrew, where do you want to be found?
Wow, that's I mean, I think Twitter is the best place to follow me. I'm not a YouTuber. I don't, but I will join the Codestream on tap thing. That sounds lovely. Other than that, like, the best way to get a hold of the New Relic product team is through your, if you're a customer, through your customer support team, through our customer support folks, through the New Relic forums. You can always, Adam, the product manager for Air's Inbox, and I are pretty active on Twitter, talking about our products, and we engage with you. If you tweet about our product, we'll probably find you and DM you. Yeah. And we're always
we'll hunt you down.
And in feedback and engaging with people who are passionate about what we do. So those are really good spots.
Love that.
I will plug.
Love that. Oh, yes.
In addition to Codestream on tap on YouTube, Codestream has on most media platforms, we're Team Codestream, so at Team Codestream, so you can find us there.
Love it. I'm putting it in the chat now. Folks, what else we want you to do? We want you to come and check out the Nerdlock every Thursday. Here on Twitch, or here on YouTube, or here on LinkedIn Live. I'm sorry that if you chatted things to me, I didn't actually read them on LinkedIn Live. I will soon. It will happen. I promise it. Next week. Allie, what else we want to plug? We want to plug Data Nerd Days, which is next month. And
of course, Data Nerd
sign up link is in the show notes. But what else?
Excuse me. That was a very well timed cough.
Mm-hmm.
I want to plug, if you're going to be at AWS reInvent, I will be there speaking as a part of the New Relic booth, so come check me out. And again, you can find me everywhere, including Minecraft, and here on Twitch and on Twitter at Ending with Ali, ENDINGWITHALI.
Love it. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining. We will be back next week. Thank you again.
Thank you.